James Halford was recalibrating a cracked coolant valve when they came for him. He was lying on his back beneath the auxiliary intake of Cargo Deck 3, sleeves rolled to his elbows, fingers black with grease that no solvent ever fully removed. A thin scar cut across his brow, pale against tired eyes that hadn't known a full night's sleep in years. His knuckles were split from metal edges that didn't forgive mistakes. His boots were older than most recruits. The freighter Wayfarer's debt was old. Just like everything humans owned in this galaxy. Panels rattled during jumps. Lights flickered when the reactor coughed. Half the systems were obsolete. The other half were barely legal. But he kept it running. That was what he did. He fixed things nobody else cared about. When alien trade envoys complained about the smell of ionized dust, he adjusted the scrubbers. When pirates crippled the thrusters, he rebuilt them from scrap. When the navigation core froze mid-route, he coaxed it back to life with patience and quiet profanity. Nobody important. Just a logistics officer with a wrench. He fixed broken conduits. He fixed fractured plating. He fixed failing systems. He fixes broken things. And that was exactly why they had come. They arrived without sirens. The Wayfarer's debt felt them before anyone saw them. The deck vibrated with a pressure that did not belong to engines or docking clamps. Conversations died mid-sentence. Tools slowed. Even the lights seemed to steady themselves, as if afraid to flicker in the presence of something greater. James Halford slid out from beneath the coolant assembly, wiping his hands on a stained rag. He thought it was customs enforcement. Maybe overdue tariffs. Maybe a citation for improper reactor shielding again. The cargo bay doors parted. They stepped through in perfect formation. 7 figures, tall enough that the overhead struts framed them like cathedral pillars. Their armor was seamless, obsidian black with faint lines of pulsing violet that traced their limbs like captive lightning. Each movement was synchronized. Precise. Economical. No wasted motion. No visible weapons, because they did not need to display them. The air itself seemed to recede from them. Dockworkers backed away. Someone dropped a crate. No one dared pick it up. One of the figures advanced. Its helm was elongated, reflective, hiding whatever gaze studied him. A sigil burned faintly across its chest plate, royal, unmistakable. Authority embodied. A thin beam of light scanned him from boots to brow. James resisted the urge to step back. Human designation, James Halford, the voice intoned. It did not echo. It did not distort. It simply existed, layered and absolute. You have been registered for Imperial Trial Ascendancy. You will come with us. James blinked. He looked behind him, as if someone more qualified might be standing there. Sorry, he said, rubbing at a smear of grease on his forearm. There must be a mistake. Silence. Then, there is no mistake. The words were neither harsh nor loud. They carried no anger. No emotion at all. That made them worse. Around him, the cargo crew avoided eye contact. The captain had emerged from the command ramp but stopped halfway down, frozen between responsibility and survival instinct. No one spoke on James' behalf. Imperial. Trial. Ascendancy. He was a logistics officer on a deteriorating freighter that barely passed inspection. He fixed broken valves. He recalibrated thrusters. He filled out supply discrepancies no one else wanted to touch. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a diplomat. He certainly wasn't important. I don't think I'm eligible for anything Imperial, James tried again. I haven't even renewed my civilian clearance. The lead soldier tilted its head a fraction. Eligibility is not determined by your perception. 2 of them moved forward. Up close, they were even taller, shoulders broad, movements impossibly smooth beneath armored plating that could probably withstand ship-mounted artillery. James suddenly became aware of the grease under his nails, the tear in his sleeve, the way his boots squeaked slightly against the deck. He looked small in their shadow. Insignificant. The scanner pulsed once more. Compliance expected, the voice continued. Resistance would be inefficient. There was no threat in the statement. Only calculation. James glanced at the captain. The captain looked away. No resistance. He exhaled slowly. Do I at least get to wash my hands? A pause. You may perform minimal decontamination procedures. That, apparently, was mercy. As they escorted him toward the docking ramp, the cargo bay seemed to shrink behind him. The ship he had kept alive for 7 stubborn years felt suddenly fragile. Temporary. One of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy had crossed systems for him. For James Halford. Nobody important. He flexed his grease-stained fingers once, then let them fall to his sides. He fixed broken things. He just had no idea what they thought was broken now. The arena was not built for mercy. It was a circular platform of white alloy suspended over an abyss of light, surrounded by tier upon tier of alien nobility, commanders, and war-bred elites. Banners of the Empire hung like frozen lightning from the vaulted ceiling. At the highest tier sat the royal dais. And upon it, the princess. Her armor was ceremonial silver, edged in living crystal that shimmered with restrained power. A circlet of command rested against her brow. At her right stood the Imperial War Commander, plated in scarred battle armor that bore the marks of 100 conquered worlds. James stood alone at the center. Grease still faintly stained the edge of his sleeve. His boots had been cleaned, but not replaced. He looked like a maintenance worker who had wandered into the wrong universe. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The commander stepped forward, voice amplified across the arena. "This," he declared, gesturing toward James, "is the human selection?" Laughter followed. Cold. Amused. The princess gaze lowered to him, not curious. Not interested. Evaluating something beneath her notice. "You are a stain on this trial," she said. The words carried more weight than any shout. James didn't answer. A small object rested in his hand, confiscated late, but returned when deemed harmless. His wrench. Old alloy. Worn grip. The only tool he had carried since his first posting. It had fixed coolant lines, cracked hull plates, failing stabilizers. It had kept ships alive. The commander descended the steps. In one swift motion, he seized the wrench from James' hand. The alloy shrieked as alien fingers tightened. Metal designed for industrial stress folded like paper. The wrench snapped in half. Gasps of amusement echoed outward. The commander let the broken pieces fall at James' feet. "You possess no combat record," he continued. "No augmentation. No lineage of power. You repair debris. You mend scrap." A pause. "You are powerless." Silence stretched across the arena. James stared at the 2 broken halves on the white floor. He said nothing. Slowly, calmly, he bent down. He picked up the broken pieces. No protest. No anger. No plea. Just a man collecting what was his. Because humans did not discard broken things. They rebuilt them. And somewhere high above, unnoticed by the nobles and the princess alike, the containment gates beneath the arena began to unlock. The floor vanished beneath him. James dropped through a column of light and hit sand hard enough to rattle his teeth. Heat slammed into him from every direction. The sky above was a violent orange, fractured by drifting ash clouds and jagged floating rock formations that defied gravity. The arena had been a lie. This was the trial. A siren tone pulsed once across the landscape, then silence returned, thick, oppressive, waiting. James pushed himself up, coughing. The sand wasn't sand. It was powdered mineral, sharp against his palms. In the distance, geysers of flame erupted in rhythmic bursts from fissures in the ground. Not random. Rhythmic. He squinted. One vent flared. 3 seconds later, the next. Then the next. Pattern. He didn't run immediately. Instead, he watched. Counted. 1, 2, 3. Another eruption. Same interval. The vents weren't chaotic. They were cycling pressure releases. Which meant there would be a lull, a gap wide enough to cross if timed correctly. High above, unseen eyes observed. James wiped sweat from his brow and scanned the terrain. Jagged obsidian ridges offered partial cover, but the mineral dust around them shimmered strangely. Not dust. Residue. He crouched and touched it lightly. His fingers tingled. Conductive. which meant the lightning crawling across the distant storm front wasn't just atmospheric. The ground itself could carry charge. So the high ridges were death during a storm. He moved low instead. Another vent pulsed. He counted again. Adjusted for a slight delay. Pressure building somewhere deeper in the crust. He ran on the offbeat. Flame erupted behind him, close enough to scorch the back of his jacket. He didn't look back. Just dove behind a fractured slab of black stone as the next vent fired. Heat washed over him. Alive. Not powerful. Just paying attention. A tremor rippled through the ground. From a nearby rock face, a chunk of alloy framework jutted outward, clearly artificial. Leftover from previous trials. Damaged. Half-melted. Infrastructure. Which meant systems. He scrambled toward it during the next vent cycle and examined the exposed paneling. The casing had split open, revealing a bundle of crystalline conduits flickering erratically. Cooling system failure. He almost smiled. He had seen this before. Different materials, same problem. Thermal overload leading to cascade instability. He snapped one half of his broken wrench against a sharp edge of stone, grinding it down into a crude prying tool. Not ideal, but workable. He opened the panel fully. Inside, mineral paste had hardened around a cracked conduit junction. The paste was meant to insulate heat spikes. Now it was choking the system. He scraped it away carefully, fingers moving with practiced precision. Repositioned the fractured conduit so it wouldn't arc against the casing. A vent nearby misfired, longer burst this time. Pressure imbalance. He rerouted a secondary line manually, wedging a shard of conductive mineral between two contact points to stabilize current flow. The structure hummed. The nearby vents shifted rhythm. Slower. Less violent. A localized reduction in geothermal pressure. Not shut down, but manageable. James leaned back against the alloy frame, breathing hard. Above, the audience watched in silence. No energy blasts. No hidden strength. No transformation. Just a human reading air currents. Counting pulses. Using mineral paste. Repairing something mid-trial because it was broken. He survived because he understood systems. Because everything failed eventually. And he fixed broken things. The storm did not begin. It paused. High above the fractured world, beyond the artificial sky dome and the observation tiers, beyond even the Imperial control lattice. Something shifted. James did not see it. He was kneeling beside the damaged alloy structure, palms pressed against warm metal, listening to the steadying hum of redirected current. The vents had settled into a manageable rhythm. The ground still trembled, but no longer with violent unpredictability. He exhaled slowly. Count. Adjust. Stabilize. Simple. A shadow moved across the wasteland. Not cast by cloud. Not cast by structure. The mineral dust at his feet stirred, just slightly, despite the absence of wind. Far below the arena's crust, deeper than geothermal chambers, deeper than the Empire's engineered trial mechanisms, something vast altered its attention. It had been dormant. Not asleep. Waiting. Across the battlefield, creatures engineered for slaughter froze mid-prowl. Sensory frills tightened. Predatory eyes shifted, not toward prey. Toward him. James rubbed at his brow, smearing ash across tired skin. He glanced upward briefly, squinting at the strange stillness in the air. "Great," he muttered quietly. "What now?" The alloy frame beneath his hand vibrated, not from failing systems. From resonance. Recognition. Deep in the unseen layers of the world, ancient structures older than the Empire's claim flickered with faint internal light. A signal, not broadcast. Acknowledged. Not because he was strong. Not because he was chosen. But because he was repairing something that had been broken for a very, very long time. And for the first time in centuries, something ancient looked at him. Not by accident. Like it had been waiting. The arena restored itself in radiant light. The hostile world dissolved into shimmering particles, replaced once more by the grand ceremonial platform suspended over the abyss. Banners ignited with holographic flame. The Imperial choir resonated through the chamber in layered harmonic tones. One by one, the surviving candidates stepped forward. A towering Virexian war heir raised both hands, and violet plasma spiraled around his arms like living serpents. The crowd roared as a colossal armored beast materialized behind him, bond formed, energy signatures synchronized in perfect dominance. A crystalline aristocrat extended her palm, and gravity bent visibly around her. The air warped. A winged leviathan descended from above, kneeling in submission as radiant sigils burned between them. Another candidate, scarred, augmented, drove a spear into the platform, splitting the alloy with a shockwave that rippled across the arena. From the fissure emerged a scaled predator, its eyes glowing with immediate allegiance. Each display was louder, brighter, more overwhelming. Energy flared. Creatures bowed. Bonds sealed in spectacular bursts of light. The crowd stood in thunderous approval. High above, the princess watched with calm satisfaction. "This," the war commander declared, voice amplified across the chamber, "is power worthy of ascendancy." Human designation, James Halford. A murmur of amusement spread instantly. James stepped forward. No armor, no weapon, just tired eyes and steady breathing. He stood at the center of the platform. The ceremonial sigils beneath his feet ignited. They waited. The arena lights intensified. The summoning gate opened behind him with a low, resonant hum. Nothing emerged. Seconds stretched. Energy sensors flickered uncertainly. James blinked once, glancing mildly over his shoulder at the empty gate. The silence became uncomfortable. Then, laughter. Not restrained this time. Open. Echoing. The war commander's voice cut through it. As expected. The princess did not laugh. But she did look away. The laughter stopped. Not faded. Stopped. It was as if the sound had been cut from existence mid-breath. Thousands of voices silenced at once, leaving a vacuum so absolute it rang in the bones. James hadn't moved. The summoning gate behind him flickered once. Then every sensor array in the arena began to scream. Not with rising numbers. Not with overload warnings. With static. Displays fractured into cascading glyph errors. Energy readings flatlined, then spiked beyond measurable limits before blinking out entirely. The crystalline pillars lining the platform cracked with sharp, spiderweb fractures racing through their cores. The instruments did not spike. They shattered. Across the ceremonial floor, the bonded beasts reacted first. The plasma serpent recoiled, its coils tightening around its chosen heir, not in aggression. In fear. The winged leviathan folded its vast wings and lowered its body flat against the alloy. The scaled predator that had split the platform earlier backed away, claws scraping helplessly as it emitted a low, trembling sound that no war beast should ever make. Every creature in the arena turned toward James. Not summoned. Not commanded. Drawn. The air above the central gate darkened, not with shadow, but with depth. Like something immense was pressing against the skin of reality from the other side. A fracture split the space vertically behind him. Light did not pour out. Darkness did. Ancient. Heavy. Intent. From within it, a shape began to emerge, vast beyond proportion, its presence bending the architecture of the arena itself. Banners disintegrated. The royal sigils dimmed. High above, the princess gripped the edge of her throne. Records older than her bloodline whispered of this presence. Myth. Extinction class. Unbondable. The creature fully manifested. It did not roar. It did not flare with spectacle. It lowered itself. And before the entire empire, it bowed. Not in bond. In submission. No one spoke. Not the commander. Not the princess. Not the thousands who had come to witness power crowned. The ancient creature remained bowed. James looked behind him at it, then back at the silent arena, as if mildly confused about protocol. He hadn't commanded anything. He hadn't reached out. He hadn't even understood what was happening. And yet, the oldest being in recorded myth had lowered itself before a maintenance officer with grease under his nails. Across the chamber, fractured instruments tried and failed to interpret what stood at the center of the platform. Because there was no surge, no flare, no dominance field. Only stability. The Empire had always believed power flowed downward, from conqueror to conquered, from beast to rider, from energy to weapon. But this creature did not respond to dominance. It responded to recognition. Every power in the galaxy was a reflection. Warp-bending aristocrats reflected gravity. War heirs reflected destruction. Bonded beasts reflected force. Humans carried something older. Not strength. Not psychic fire. Not genetic supremacy. Foundation. They repaired. They adapted. They endured what should have broken them, and then fixed it. Worlds shattered. Empires rose and fell. Systems failed. Humans stayed. Not because they were the most powerful. Because they were the ones who rebuilt after power burned itself out. The ancient being did not bow to a warrior. It bowed to a species that fixed broken worlds without demanding worship for it. James shifted his weight slightly, awkward under the attention. He hadn't changed. He was still just a man who counted vent pulses and patched failing conduits. But something impossibly old had looked at him and recognized the original pattern. Every empire was an echo. Humans were the blueprint. James Halford was recalibrating a cracked coolant valve when they brought him back. The docking clamps of the Wayfarer's deck groaned as the shuttle disengaged. No fanfare. No banners. No imperial anthem. The ancient being had vanished as silently as it had arrived. The arena had sealed. The princess had said nothing when he declined extended integration. He had asked for transport home. That alone had unsettled them more than the bow. Now he lay on his back beneath the same auxiliary intake on cargo deck 3, sleeves rolled, fingers already dark with grease again. The ship still rattled during idle thrust. The lights still flickered when the reactor coughed. Just like everything humans owned in this galaxy. A junior deckhand hovered nearby, staring at him like he might sprout wings. "Is it true," she whispered, "that it knelt?" James adjusted the torque on the valve with a borrowed wrench. His old one remained in 2 pieces, wrapped carefully in cloth inside his locker. "It leaned," he said mildly. "Probably bad joints." The deckhand didn't know whether to laugh. He tightened the bolt. The coolant line steadied. The vibration eased by a fraction. Across the comm-net, rumors were spreading faster than sanctioned reports. Empires recalculated. War commanders revised doctrines. Priests argued over prophecy. Somewhere in the core systems, ancient archives were being opened for the first time in millennia. James wiped his hands on a rag that had seen better decades. He checked the pressure gauge. Still holding. Good. He slid out from under the intake and listened to the hum of the aging freighter. Imperfect. Worn. Functional. No throne waited for him. No crown. No fleet under his command. Just a maintenance log that was 3 days overdue. He picked up his toolkit. Because no matter how many gods bowed, he was still a man who fixed broken things. And the galaxy had been broken for a very long time.